The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Paranormal Concept right here on Parasearch UK Radio with your host, Paul Rook.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and joining me tonight is the ever-lovely Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello, darling. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Had a good week. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad at all.
Have you done anything spooky or paranormal lately?
No, but I've been embracing my spiritual more, and so that's always a good thing. I've been trying to quiet my mind and come up with a few decisions, but, you know, it's all good.
Excellent. All good. Yeah, I've pretty much done the same thing. We tried to expand the new company a little bit, and
looking forward to that.
We actually bought a caravan, and we're gonna deck it out, and we're gonna go and use that for some of the events that we got planned coming up.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it's all good in the hood.
Times are changing all round, I feel.
Absolutely, it's been very slow this year, I thought. So I thought, you know what, it's time to get moving and get things up and running and stuff, and let's go.
It's been a very so far it's been quite a transformational year in one way or another, hasn't it?
It has, and not just for us, but everyone else as well.
Yeah.
I've noticed huge shifts in the paranormal field.
Oh god, yeah. Not always good.
Well, no, not always good. I mean, people have come and gone, and yeah, not always for the best reasons, but you know, it's just the way things go sometimes.
It is.
So we never know. It might just pick up, and we all might come back.
Of course we will.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, tonight's show we're gonna try and embarrass you. I think. Let's talk about the vampiric demons.
It's not going to be difficult on this one, I feel.
No, absolutely not. So where would you like to start? I mean, do you want to go?
I love this. Where would you like to start?
Do you want to go straight in with the incubus or the succubus?
Wow.
Because I know you're dying for this subject. This is your favourite subject. I know. I can feel the intense heat coming off your face already.
I'm going to try and be really professional, should we say, about this one.
Because it's a professional show.
Oh dear, right, okay. We could talk. Oh God, we could talk about incubus.
Okay, let's talk about an incubus then. What is an incubus?
Okay. It's a male form. Oh, you're such a cute. It's supposed to be a male form of entity. I'm going to use the word entity rather than demon, or demon.
Yeah.
That is believed to assault women. Now, the name comes from. It's actually Latin. Called,
what you mean is when assault. Let's just sort of say basically this demon shows up and slaps them about a bit. Yeah. Is that the sort of assault you mean? No.
Okay, sexually assault. Assault. Okay, we'll go with sexually assault. All right.
Now we know where you're in.
Oh my God, is all I can say. All right. Right, I'm going to go back to the Latin. I'm going Latin here. It's from the late Latin incubo, which means nightmare. Now, this has its origins in the Latin word incubare, which is to lie on. That means to lie on. right? So basically this entity lies on you and does things to you that is very sexual.
You're really having trouble with this subject, aren't you?
Oh my God. You know me. I can do this kind of talk privately, but on air, it gets me every time. Okay, yeah. Basically, it's that is what that is. Now, these kind of tales of these kind of entities visiting in the night. It's not just a male or a female thing. It can happen to either sex. It's not fussy. Basically, I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm not professional about this at all. This is why he's picked this topic, because he knew I'd be like totes embarrassed. But it's also accompanied by things like sleep paralysis, which we've discussed before, nightmares, feelings of choking and oppression, and we get this energy drain, which is where we get this demonic, vampiric thing coming in. This is why they're one of the demonic vampiric entities, or that's how they're classed as. But there are, on the other hand, there is another positive side to this. There have been reports of a hugely increased libido, should we say, and also people find themselves almost having a sex addiction from these kind of visitations, shall we say.
Well, sort of changing not changing the subject, but going along these sort of lines. Mm-hmm. Do you in the news recently? You had this woman that wanted to have children with ghosts, and do you remember the lady that was on TV recently?
Yeah. She's Amethyst Realm. Her name is, isn't it? Who?
Yeah, something like that, wasn't it? And
she's actually invited this in. Though there's a difference between somebody that has a kind of visitation which is unwanted, so it feels very almost like I hate to use the word, but it's quite a strong word, a rape situation. Yeah, so it's a shameful thing. It's something that somebody wasn't welcoming and it's happened to them and they don't know how to assimilate that. Whereas that lady has actually welcomed that in to her life and is enjoying that relationship with that alleged entity. I'm going to go with alleged entity because there's a whole psychological background to this as well. But, you know...
you bet there is.
But she's invited that in and she's wanting that relationship with that entity. In the same way as the... I can't remember her name, but there was a lady that married a pirate ghost.
Yeah, I remember that one as well.
Yeah.
I just didn't know whether or not they were going to be the same sort of entities that we're all talking about.
I would say, from what I look at when I look at those kind of cases, first of all, I have to go on the psychological basis of both of those ladies. I'm not being disrespectful to those, but I would have to have a huge psychological assessment of both of those ladies. But if you want to going back in time when these entities aren't new things, these are things that have come in from right back. I mean, this is not a new kind of entity that we're talking about, but I think you can follow the evolution of these kind of entities through, which we have discussed on other shows before now. But when we talk about incubi and succubi, these aren't new things.
Yeah, they've been around a long time.
They've been around a long time. And cross-cultural as well. They're not just like one particular culture has them. They're cross-cultural. So I think when you... I read a blog where 3 ladies actually was like, well, we're single, let's have a try of this. And set the scene and, did all this. I can't remember what their names were, but I remember reading it at the time when I was researching Amethyst Realm. And... they sort of like got themselves all ready and sort of like was like trying to invite these entities in and got nothing. So I do think there's a lot to do with the psychological profiling of the person more than anything else. But, when you start looking at tantric sex and stuff like not tantric sex, but tantrics and how that can affect your body and stuff like that, it's it's one of those, isn't it? It's one of those. But we're looking at like the mythology, I suppose, behind these entities tonight more than the psychological side of it. You know, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about psychology at some point, I hope. But yeah, you know, these entities have been around for a long, long time, and they've been given various names across cultures, but basically they're entities that will approach you in the middle of the night and make you feel things that you shouldn't really be feeling if you're on your own.
Like scared.
A little bit different from a wet dream is all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, I've always linked the incubus and succubus to sleep paralysis, because while you're in that half sleep, half awake state, you can hallucinate, and there is a lot of reported incidents of people having sleep paralysis, and they claim that things are sitting on their chest or at the bottom of their bed and they can't move and things like that, and it is quite a common occurrence. Yeah. So I've always linked those two together. So it's not as much paranormal; it's more to do with the whole brain and the way it works. Yeah. Being in that half and half state.
Yeah, it's that sleep, that moment of your brain's starting to wake up, but your body isn't. So your mental functions are kicking in. Your your conscious is slowly starting to come in, but your brain that controls your body bit hasn't quite woken up yet. So you're sort of in, like you said, that in between state, where, you know, it's a good time for all sorts of things to come into your head that you wouldn't normally expect. But you do get physical sensations at that time too. And this is where the old hag syndrome comes in, isn't it? But again, remember we spoke to Andy Mercer about this, and he said there's a well-documented evolution from old hag syndrome, where people would, see like an old hag or a witch or something horrible and frightening and very, very scary, sitting on their chest with that compression of chest and that choking feeling, which isn't sexual at all. Yeah. Through to these days, it seems to have evolved into an alien abduction scenario.
Yeah. Well, we've got a question in the chat room. Hag syndrome. What's that?
Basically, it's exactly what we're talking about. It's where you've got that moment of wake and sleep where your body's not awake, but your mind sort of is, and it's like a hallucinatic lucid dream where you imagine, or you're physically seeing an old hag. It used to be an old hag in the olden days. But when you think of the olden days where people had that mythology of witches and stuff like that, that was like their biggest fear, was that a witch would come in and take your soul or something like that. But you get the physical sensation where you can't move, so you're physically paralysed. You've got a compression on your chest, you get feelings of choked, and you wake up completely drained. But you've also got to then kick in your fight or flight responses. So your body is sort of like fighting against itself, or your mind is fighting against itself because you want to fight it, but you can't because you're not awake to do that. It's a very, very strange scenario. But it used to be called old hag syndrome, but these days we just call it sleep paralysis.
Cool. There you go.
I hope that answered the question.
We've also got another question. How can you marry a ghost? That's always baffled me as well, to be fair.
No idea, quite frankly. The lady in question had to go into international waters and use a medium as the go-between, although she's having a relationship with this entity.
Pirate Pete.
Yeah, Pirate Pete. Oh, but Jack, wasn't it? Wasn't his name Jack?
Probably. Jack Sparrow, I think. You know.
But the lady in question herself was actually a Jack Sparrow impersonator. And then she started having a relationship with a pirate ghost. And then she wanted to marry him. And then she literally had to go into international waters. Because this was in Ireland, believe it or not. She had to, and this is what I'm recalling, but believe you me, it's engraved on my memory, this one. She had to go into international waters. And because it wasn't like a vicar or a reverend for it was done via, I believe it was done in a like a Wicca way, like a practitioner of that kind of thing, rather than a religious vicar. And the medium was the one who was saying, yeah, the ghost is saying, yep, I do. And yes, that's how they married.
Mm.
But anyway.
I mean, yeah, that is like, I struggle to understand that. But saying that, nuns, for example, they wear a wedding ring.
Yeah, because they're wedded to Christ.
They're married to God, basically.
No, Christ.
Well,
God or Christ.
Thing.
Yeah.
Depends on what denomination you are. So I can understand that. So I just liken it to the same thing.
Hand fasting can be legal, by the way.
Oh,
I believe they've changed the legislation, but I could be wrong on that.
Just staple them together. Have done with it. Okay, so right, that's the incubus and succubus covered.
Well, we covered incubus. Let me just clarify. With the succubus, this is supposed to be the female form, and again, Latin, it means spirit bride or to lie under. So incubus is lie upon, and succubus is lie under. So it's the female, masculine kind of thing. However, there are certain theories that then these entities are non-gendered, and they can change their gender depending on who they pick on. So if they don't have to, they can do what they like, really.
Okay, so the incubus and succubus have their way. Do they suck the life force from you, or are they able to?
That's kind of how they do it, but they do it through your... They do it through, that way, rather than just sucking your life force. So, like, vampires will do it through your blood. Yeah, they'll suck your blood and drain your life force that way. Yeah? Whereas an succubi will do it from your energy that's expelled through your sexual expulsions. Where's Mark Manley when you need him?
No, don't go there.
No.
Okay, so is there any other demons around that take your life force in other ways?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, I looked up Lilith earlier, and that's like another demon, but she's attributed to the incubus and succubus as well, isn't she?
She does go right back to that, but this comes from actually further back, believe it or not.
Okay.
Back to Mesopotamia. Where basically Gilgamesh, his father is listed as a Lilu or Lila, and it's said that this Lila or Lilu, however you say it, disturbs and seduces women in their sleep, which is a form of it. Now these sound very similar, don't they? Lilu, Lila, Lilith.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're all coming into this now, and the women version of that, the Lilitu, appears to men in their erotic dreams. So you've got like the Lilu, who seduces women in their sleep, and the Lilitu, which appears to men in erotic dreams, guys.
So basically, Lilith is a Mesopotamian succubus, incubus.
Yeah, basically. But so this goes back to like circa 2400. So this is like right back. Now, there are corresponding demons as well. We're using the demon word on this one. Ardat Lily. Now, she visits men at night and she gets kids by them. She has sex with them and has children, ghostly children from them.
Okay.
And then the Ardu, or Urdu. See, this is a Mark Manley kind of scenario, isn't he? He's very good at the pronunciations.
Yeah,
Lily.
Urdu sounds good.
Urdu Lily, who is the male counterpart to the Ardent Lily, and visits
What about
women at
Ufology?
night and has them. We're going to go with
Yep.
has them. Now, these originally were storm demons, so these came on like the back of a storm. So if there was a storm going on, then these kind of entities would come and visit people at that kind of time at night.
Okay.
But it transformed throughout time to become night demons, because storms tended to happen more at night than they did during the day, and so they became, it sort of evolved into just being a night demon rather than a storm demon. And that's one of the things that people sort of like, how culture has changed things over time. But yeah, so that was one of the legends from Mesopotamia. But yeah, and that's basically where they reckon that they were the same demon, but they was able to change their sex depending on whom they were with. And this is really weird, right? The succubus would be able to sleep with a man to collect his sperm and then transform that into an incubus that used his seed on women. It's really weird. The whole thing is really a bit bizarre, isn't it?
It is a bit, isn't it? Okay, what about what's the demonic or ghostly spirits that lure sailors onto the rocks?
Mermaids.
By this song.
Oh no,
it's not harpies, is it? No.
No, they had wings. They used to fly around in Greece. Harpies. No, mermaids had the voice of song, didn't they? And they used to lure sailors onto the rocks, and then they used to not help the sailors, but grab the sailors and drag them under the ground to have intercourse. And
to pretend to be that maybe they were incubus and succubus in disguise.
Of the sea.
Yeah. But no, I'm sure there was one.
Sirens.
Sirens.
You're thinking a siren. Yeah, that's right. I was thinking seers, and it's not. It's sirens, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And didn't they like take the life force as well?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the equivalent of
the sea equivalent of an incubi and
Yeah.
a succubi. There's probably nothing of the sort, but we'll go with that.
Yeah, why not? It sounds good, doesn't it? Okay, so what else have we found out about the incubus and succubus? I was gonna scroll down to some of your research.
Well, apparently the offspring of these incubi and succubus, let's have a quick word about that. We've talked about them collecting the sperm and changing, and using the sperm to make babies effectively. Now, these are a thing, right? Apparently. There are numerous stories of people that have had this happen to them, and then they had to have an exorcism, right? And a half-human offspring of such a union is called a cambion.
Okay.
And Merlin, good old Merlin,
yeah,
is said to have been one of these.
Interesting.
Never knew that. I never knew that. But good old Geoffrey of Monmouth, who is an authority on the case, I would just like to say, apparently. He wrote a book years and years and years ago, 1137, I believe. He wrote that he was the son of a nun and a grandson of the King of Demetia in South Wales. But he also said his father was either a devil or an incubus. So it's a bit clouded in mystery as to who his father actually was. Yeah. So this is why Merlin becomes such a paradox, because it said that he was the son of a devil, yet he was also a servant of God. So, and this is what Geoffrey of Monmouth said. And that's why he's got this, when you hear stories of Merlin, they're either really, he's fantastic, he's amazing, he was a powerhouse behind King Arthur, or he was horrible and evil and nasty and needed to, be put away for life kind of scenario.
I guess it just depends on what side of the bed he got up.
I think we're all a bit like that, aren't we?
You're not me. I'm always good.
It's a bit bad if one side of your bed is like lodged against a wall. You can't get out the other side of the bed.
That's you're knackered.
You're absolutely knackered with that one. But yeah, it's So Merlin is always one of those. It's one of those characters, isn't he? That's shrouded in mystery. Even his origins are shrouded in mystery. And when you look at that's a good show. Looking at Merlin. The stories about Merlin. They're so strange, and he is a paradox. There is no denying about Merlin. He is one of those characters from history that I say history because it's myth, really, isn't it, Merlin?
It is, yeah. Because they don't know obviously whether or not he existed. They don't know about Camelot.
Yeah,
So there's lots of questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of mythology around that whole area, isn't there? Like the Knights of the Round Table and stuff like that. That's a fascinating topic, actually. But I was
actually talking to someone about that today, or yesterday.
I mean, I have to say, it is one of those fascinating ones with links to Glastonbury and all sorts of places. But good old Geoffrey of Monmouth was actually one of the main mythology writers on that time. So we have a lot to blame Geoffrey for on that one. Good old Geoffrey.
All his fault.
It's all his fault, yeah.
Okay. Is there any other famous people that claim to be children of the incubus?
I couldn't find any other famous people.
Okay.
But it leads you on, doesn't it? It's like a rabbit hole when you start doing research. It's one of those things. It kind of led me down into, so what do the normal religions think of these entities? So we had a look at the Judeo-Christianity. Now, we talk about the fallen angels, don't we?
Yeah.
When they had that war with God, and then some of the angels decided to leave heaven and do their own thing under Lucifer and stuff like that. See, that's another topic that I want to sort of get a bit more into because I'm not an authority on the subject. But apparently, when they fell to earth, they had sex with mortal women. Now, this is where a lot of the legends of when you start looking at it, this particular side of things sort of links into the ancient alien theory.
Yeah.
Where aliens came to Earth, whereas like in the Bible they say that they fell to Earth and had sex with mortal women that created the hybrid species of half and half, and that is since in the Bible it says that's when the incubi stalked the Earth, whereas so the Bible sort of goes with the incubi that stalked the Earth and then seduces women in their dreams and impregnates them. Right, and then the children, allegedly, of the incubi grow up to become rapists. Lovely.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Interesting. I mean, I do know, obviously, that another interpretation of that would be the Greeks and the Romans when they're talking about the gods coming down and having children with mortal women or men. And that's where the demigod comes into play. Mm-hmm. So you've got like Perseus and all those sort of stories going on. So again, that's just another interpretation of the same thing, I would have thought.
Again, when you start looking at it, there's a lot of cross-culturals, isn't there? A lot of cross-mythologies that you can come across with this theory of something falling from the heavens that, interferes with the human race as we know it and breeds with us and then creates another race of kind of super demis or whatever they want to class them as. It is a whole mythology, and it's one of those ancient alien theory type kind of scenarios that people sort of like link into. I don't know on this one. It's a difficult one because it's down to translation, isn't it?
It is, and I do think it's just a way of logically explaining things, and when you're talking about fallen angels from Christianity's point of view, and then you got the whole demigods with the Greek point of view, and it all makes sense, just different translations of the same thing.
Yeah, it is very, as I say, the amount of different topics we've researched over the time we've been doing Parasearch, you find common threads. And yes, the terminology and the mythology is slightly different, but it distills down to very similar threads that run through lots of cross cultures. We've come across this an awful lot. And it is fascinating when you start looking at it, particularly when you sort of look at the time when they weren't there wasn't the travel between the cultures that there is today. I mean, God, if an alien fell from Earth and had sex with a woman, it'd be all over the sun, wouldn't it? Well, it is, isn't it?
They'd be on this morning, wouldn't they?
They'd be on this morning. You can imagine that one. Philip and Holly sitting there going, really?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Mark D is in the chat room, I'd just like to say. Now, regarding King Arthur, tales and legends we were talking about, he refers to the work of Wilson and Blackett. They will point you in the right direction and not the common rubbish, he says, that you read today. And Graham Smith, I know, I'm sure his name is Graham Smith, not the Graham Smith we know, a different Graham Smith, has done a lot of work on that too. So, I was basically reading his a little while ago, and then I got sidetracked onto another topic. And
going into the whole Arthur issue, I mean, there are lots of different versions out there, but I think the best one I've ever seen or read was the movie The Last Legion. And it basically put Arthur as a member of the Caesar family. And at the fall of the Roman Empire, he was taken to Hadrian's Wall in England or Scotland. And he was basically placed with a family called the Pendragons.
Oh, okay.
It was either that or the Legion was called the Pendragon. And that's who brought him up. And obviously that's, again, where the whole Merlin and everything else comes into play. And he became King Arthur eventually.
Again, it kicks into that, I don't know, is it a very romanticised view of that time? Knights of the Round Table with a king, and Guinevere and Sir Lancelot and that love story that went on about it all, and Merlin with the magic and dragons, and
that's it.
Then you have Morgana, the wicked sister, and even her image has changed. She healed him at one point, Arthur, and then she lived on an island with some other women. From what I remember, this is very, very vague, and my details, and I'm no expert, trust me, from vague things that I read. She lived, and she healed him, and then he went there to die, and then she got blamed for his death and became cast as the wicked woman of the story. Oh, again, totally fascinating. Anyway, we've got off the subject of Incubi.
Well, I want to know where I want to know where they got the coconuts from. That's all I'll say on that subject.
Coconuts?
Have you not seen Monty Python?
No.
What
with the horse noise?
Camelot. There's riding around on horses, men
the
with
knights that say meh. You love a bit of Monty Python, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. They're awesome.
The Life of Brian is my favourite, I would just like to say.
Oh, yeah. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
He's a very naughty boy. Yeah.
leave Juniper Bush alone. Anyway.
As we start going off into Monty Python sketches.
This is how it goes. I mean, as you said, digging into the history does sort of go off on tangents, and you come across things like this.
It is strange when you start looking at one area. It does take you down a rabbit hole of different areas, and then all of a sudden, 3 hours later, you go, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be researching that. I'm supposed to be going on to this. I shouldn't be looking at this at all." So yeah, and this is why you end up with tidbits of knowledge rather than an authority on one topic.
That's it. Well, we started with Incubus and Succubus, and now we got to King Arthur. Who knew his linked? But they are, and Merlin's to blame.
It's all because of Merlin. It's Merlin's fault. We'll blame Merlin. And then we went on to angels, and oh my God.
Yeah, cool. We've covered a lot in this. How long have we been going now? 40 minutes? Okay. Okay, so are there any other demons out there that feed off the human soul or
Well, I
life?
want to talk about Lilith, because Lilith, we're talking about Bibles and stuff. Well, Lilith was actually a Sumerian fertility agricultural goddess, right? Now, apparently, I did not know this, right? Well, I kind of did a little bit, because I did a show on vampires, the traditional blood-sucking vampires with the amazing, oh God, what was his name? Anyway, some guy. Now, she was Adam's first wife. Right, so when God created man and woman, he created them at the same time and equal to each other.
Right, okay.
But he wasn't happy with her at all, because she was, well, he didn't really make them equal, because she thought she was quite dominant over him.
She wouldn't do the dishes and things.
Exactly. And Adam was a bit like, oh, God, I'm like so, like a bit annoyed with her, because she's like so dominant. She wants to be on top all the time. I still can't believe I read this. Right. She actually left him because he always wanted to be on top, during intercourse. Right, so she was like, no, I'd like to be on top occasionally. I'm equal to you. Why do you have to always be on top? So Adam apparently complained to God that she wasn't submissive enough. And so God made a new wife for Adam from his rib, took his rib out, which is why women and men have different ribs. And Eve, good old Eve, came on the scene. And we all know what happened there, don't we?
Yep. Eve got him kicked out of the Garden of Eden.
Because she ate an apple.
It doesn't actually specify that it is an apple.
Does it? Doesn't it?
Nope.
Oh.
Nope, it doesn't say anywhere that it's an apple. It's just known as the forbidden fruit.
Ooh, the forbidden fruit. But it was done by a serpent.
Everyone assumes it's an apple.
Well, apples are quite prevalent through history, aren't they?
Well, I've always thought maybe that it was because the apples are supposed to be the fruit of knowledge or something, isn't it?
Mm. And
so I would have thought
in Greek mythology, in the garden of whatever it was,
possibly.
One of Hercules' 12 trials, he had to go to the beautiful garden. I can't remember the bloody name of that either. And steal an apple from the tree.
Very possibly. I mean, that might be where it came from originally, but in the Bible, it doesn't actually specify that it was an apple. It just says the forbidden fruit.
But she was tempted by a serpent, wasn't she? A snake.
Those blasted snakes.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. And the tree was supposed to be the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Well, she did this, naughty Eve, very submissive, wasn't she? She was like, oh, yes, serpent, I'll do what you say, because I'm like ultimately submissive woman, because God made me that way. Well, anyway, right, the weird links on this one. I found some really strange ones on this one. Now, Lilith, Adam's first wife, is apparently closely linked in regards to symbology of the serpent. Right?
Okay.
Apparently. I don't know how they got to this. I didn't get a chance to look right into that. But anyway, so any entities that are drawn to the throat area, this is where it gets a little bit strange, which is the location of a reptilian brain stem. So in a snake, the brain stem is sort of like on the throat area rather than a human, which is like back of the neck. Mm-hmm. Right? So that is one of the reasons why vampirism go for the throat. Because it comes from this mythology of Lilith and the symbology of the serpent.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right?
Yep.
Oh, and this is where it gets very, very confusing, okay? In the Kabbalah, the apple represents the Da'at. Now that operates on two levels. The higher level, which is referred to as the I'm going to love this, the Asda. Or that Asda at Elyon, which is higher knowledge, or the Da at Han Alam, which is hidden knowledge, which is basically the subconscious or the dream realm.
Right, okay.
Okay? So that's what the apple is representative of, the two levels, the higher and the higher levels, basically. Hidden knowledge and higher knowledge, right? So basically that translates to subconscious or the dream realm. Right. Now, this, we talked about sleep paralysis.
Yep.
Now, that's called a hypnagogic state, which is the transitional state from wakeful to sleep. Right?
Yep. I knew that one.
Okay. Now, during this state, a phenomenon may occur during this, they call it the threshold consciousness. Okay, and this can include lucid thought, lucid dreaming, hallucinations, sleep paralysis. So in that state, that is where all those things are set, right?
Yep.
Now, in this state, that reflects your beliefs back to you. So if you're having a lucid dream or a hallucination or a sleep paralysis, your personal belief will reflect back to you what it is. So back in the medieval ages, they were very prevalent about worrying about witches stealing your soul and stuff like that. That's where the old hag syndrome comes, right? So if you were very, very religious and you believed that you were, you had this hallucination at this particular time, then you could have a hallucination of a vampire, because your belief system is linked into these concepts of Lilith and the vampirism and this apple and all those subconscious and dream realms and knowledges and stuff. So that's where these things come from. So these go really deep into your consciousness. We're getting to the psychology of it now. Oh my God. I'm not a psychologist. I would just like to add. Right, so these link into that. So if you look at it in today's day and age, where we're very media driven, very film driven, the ufology world and stuff like that. If you believe in aliens abducting human beings, if you're in this transitional state of sleep to wakefulness and you have this hallucination or a lucid dream or whatever way it transforms, you could then have that belief system reflected back to you that you're being abducted by aliens.
Yeah,
do you see what I mean?
That makes perfect sense and pretty much covers the whole situation for me, really. Mm-hmm. I'd go with that every time.
I agree with you in this. Now, Carl Jung, School of Analytical Psychology, I'm going to get very posh now, as part of his theory of the collective unconscious, there was the anima and the animus. Right, now the animus is the unconscious masculine side of a woman, and the anima is the unconscious feminine side of a man. So if you then look at those kind of things, they transcend the personal psyche, the psyche. Now, his theory states that the anima and the animus are two primary, can't get this one, guys, anthropomorphic archetypes of the unconscious mind. I don't know what that means, but it sounds great, doesn't it? As opposed to the theriomorphic and inferior function of the shadow archetypes. So again, if you think of that, so as a woman, right, for example, you're in this sleep paralysis state, your masculine side then steps forward in this sleep paralysis state, yeah? So your animus steps forward, and you have this sleep hallucination, sleep paralysis scenario going on. That's why that experience comes to you as a male entity and vice versa. But it's not actually an entity. It's actually coming from your own deep psyche. Yeah.
So again, it sort of ties in with the whole sleep paralysis side of things.
Mm-hmm. Driven by your belief systems.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now, good sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, have you got any other information from the psychology department, maybe?
Well, at the university, funny enough, I do.
I thought you might.
Yeah, strangely enough, I do actually. The University of Waterloo's Department of Psychology, a gentleman named Al Chin, It says sleep paralysis, or more properly sleep paralysis with a hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucinations, have been singled out as a particularly likely source of beliefs concerning not only alien abduction, but all manner of beliefs in alternative realities and other worldly creatures. He says sleep paralysis is a condition in which someone, most often lying in a supine position, about to drop off to sleep, or just upon waking from sleep, realises that she or he is unable to move or speak or cry out. And this may last for several moments or a few seconds. And then people often reportedly feel a presence that is often described as malevolent, threatening, or evil.
Ooh.
Now, apparently 40% of the population has had such an experience at least once in their life. And
that's a big percentage, really. Isn't it?
That's quite a large percentage of the population, isn't it? Right. Now, this paralysis is actually caused by a release of hormones during the rapid eye movement of sleep. And dream state that paralyzes the body, keeps it from acting out the contents of the dream. So you're having that experience without your body reacting to that. Now, usually the hormones dissipate before the dream ends, and the dreamer sort of like becomes a lot more aware. And rare cases, the hormones are still suppressing the body's motor functions. So when this is different from sleepwalking, for example, so that's completely different thing. Because
doesn't it? With the release of hormones, doesn't it sort of stop you from? There's something in your body then that stops you getting up and doing the things that you're doing in the dream.
Exactly. So these hormones are suppressing the body motor functions, whereas sleepwalking is the opposite. The hormones are allowing you to do that, but you're not aware that you're doing that, which is sort of like the opposite side of it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
In this particular case of sleep paralysis, the hormones are still suppressing the body motor functions. So when the sleeper is sort of like in that half awake, half asleep state, they find themselves paralysed. That's why you're paralysed, because that's what your body does while you're asleep. It stops you from acting out day-to-day functions, which is why you can go to sleep, and not do the dishes or do the hoovering or go to work and stuff, know. Now, so when you find yourself in this paralysed situation, you can imagine that for a brain, that's quite oh, hello, what's going on here, for a start. The fright or flight kicks in. The brain tries to find a rational explanation for the paralysis, so it actually invents the evil presence or the entity to help you understand what's happening. So it actually does that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to go back to Lilith in a minute, aren't we?
I think so. Jumped around a little bit on this one, only because I wanted to explain the psychology behind the belief system of Lilith. That was the Bible references of Lilith, and then we went into the psychology of what it is. But when you start looking back to the symbology between Lilith and Eve, Lilith is of the dream. So when you sort of read those tales in the Bible or wherever these mythologies come from, and if that's where your belief system is, then Lilith, being of the dream, and then you get these experiences, turns her into something that's evil or a presence.
So she's basically like the Freddy Krueger of the demon dream world.
Yeah, basically, it comes along in the night and wants to be on top, basically. Living out her fantasy that she never got with Adam. Whereas Eve is more physical. She's more of the waking world. She's something that is Adam and Eve of the waking world. They're in a physical realm rather than this dream world, that Lilith has now been banished to in that mythology. Yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's sort of where we go, really, basically. It's all about belief system and sex.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew you'd love this subject.
Oh, God, I got right into it in the end. I started cringy and then I was like, oh, my God, this is actually really interesting. Now, there are variations around the world of this.
There's bound to be.
Oh, I love a variation. In Zanzibar.
I'm going to love the translation. So yeah, you knock yourself out with these words.
Oh, thanks a lot. A Popo Bawa.
Okay.
Now, apparently, the Popo Bawa.
That sounds like a beer.
It does. In fact, I think we need to make a beer that's got that name. Quite frankly.
What name is that again?
Popo Bawa.
Okay.
Or a Popo Bawa, depending on how you want to say it. Now, apparently, this primarily attacks men and generally behind closed doors.
Yep.
Doesn't like to be
That's
public.
time to do it.
Doesn't like to be public, clearly.
No.
And in Chile, going to Chile,
Yeah.
the El Troco,
Okay.
however you say that word, is a hideous, deformed dwarf who lulls, I love this word, nubile young women and seduces them. Not any young woman, just a nubile woman.
Yeah.
Now, this El Troca, or Trackle, or whatever you want to say, however you want to pronounce it, is said to be responsible for unwanted pregnancies, especially in unmarried women. I think that's just something that happens, and they blame this poor old
Yeah. I think that's
deformed dwarf.
yeah. It happened to be the butler or something. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we know how it is.
And in Hungary, going all the way into Europe, Hungary, a Lideric can be a satanic lover that flies at night.
Okay. Cool.
I can't tell.
So there's a lot of them about.
Oh, there's a hell of a lot of them. In Brazil and the rainforests of Amazon, the Boto is a combination of both a siren and an incubus. And it's a very charming and beautiful man who seduces young women and takes them into the river. And is supposed to be responsible for disappearances and unwanted pregnancies. Again, can't be seen by daylight, because during daytime it transforms into a river dolphin. How cute.
Okay. Yeah, see, and again, we sort of touched on the siren earlier.
Yeah, we did.
Of spirit entity type things, yeah. Mm-hmm. Just of the sea, isn't it, really? And then you got the land-based.
I mean, the Boto, which is this Brazilian entity.
I always thought it was a tribe, personally, but okay.
Well, according to the legend I found, it was this entity that is sort of like the combination of the two. I love this bit. He always wears a hat to disguise the breathing hole at the top of his head. How sexual and attractive is that? Hey, come here and check out my blowhole.
Yeah, and he always keeps his hat on. Yeah, we know.
Oh dear. So anyway, we've kind of covered that, really, haven't we? But I want to have a quick talk to you about the entity.
Okay.
Because we know the entity. It's a very famous film. It created such a stir when the film came out because of the essence of the entity that the poor lady was having, the situation she was having. And this was actually I was shocked. I thought it was just a Hollywoody type thing. But it actually was in 1974, a lady called Doris Bither. Now, she was a mother of four. She had four sons in a house in California. And she began to suffer a series of physical attacks. Now, it wasn't just done allegedly by one ghost. It was done by a group of ghosts. But she was allegedly regularly raped by the phantoms. And it was allegedly different entities. Some would hold her down and the larger entities would rape her. And her sons got so used to seeing the ghost, they referred to the ghost as Mr. Who's It.
Okay.
And many people witnessed this. It wasn't just like something she claimed. It was, witnessed.
Yeah. So, that to me says something a little bit different to the incubus or succubus.
But is it?
I mean, I don't know the case and anything like that, but I mean, incubus and succubus don't tend to work in gangs,
Well, no, you wouldn't have thought so.
It's always just normally the one demon that comes in at night and that's it, sort of thing. You know, you don't hear that someone's had like a gang of them turn up.
Well, no, I mean it's
quite unusual.
It's an incredibly unusual case, and I thought this was just a film thing until I looked into it a little bit further. But one of her sons claimed to have seen Doris being thrown around the room by an invisible phenomena. He says that when he tried to stop the attack, he was tossed away like loose garbage. Now, bearing in mind, these are invisible entities that are doing this, apparently. Yeah. Her eldest son, Brian Harris, described the entities as like a fog or like a human, but not quite. Now, the attacks against the mother were very brutal. They went on for years. Now, she was tossed around the room, slapped, raped almost nightly. Her sons recall seeing major scarring on her legs and thighs, as if someone had grabbed her. Now, the eldest son claims to have witnessed many of the attacks. In an interview in 2009, he says that because his bedroom was next door to his mother's room, he would have to listen to the assaults as they happened. And in a few cases, he actually saw her being beaten by an invisible force. And he said it was like, imagine being a woman beaten, right? So he said you could see her being picked up and thrown around, sounds and slaps, but there was no one there to actually do it. Could you imagine that? That must have been horrific as a child to witness this. He said they all felt it, pulling, biting, scratching. They were all attacked at some point by these entities. Now, according to the sons, she wasn't the only one in the house who was being attacked by these creatures, and the members of her family would speak about the incident, claim that at different times throughout the years they experienced things in the house as well. They say that one of them was slapped by a creature, one of them bumped into an invisible man in the hallway, and the eldest son found a way to make the ghosts particularly excited, which was by playing Black Sabbath or Uriah Heep. I don't know who they are, but Black Sabbath loudly.
Well, I know Black Sabbath, yeah.
And he claims that the music would set off a chain reaction of orbs appearing around the house, and the house lights would turn on and off.
I might look into this case because it is quite unusual, and having the fact that obviously there was like 5 of them, I'm also wondering what race the family was, because he doesn't actually specify.
I think they were white Americans, if I remember rightly. But again, we would have to look into this a lot more.
I'm just thinking maybe spirits connected to the Civil War that was over there, 1776-ish, because that was quite a gruesome war. And if they turned out to be African American, then they're not going to be treated very well by it.
Yeah. I mean, it would need a lot more research on this one, but so this was just a basic outline of the case that I found on this one, and this was basically because I thought of the film, really. But I do know that investigators, psychologists and that looked into this case at the time. Now, there was many theories about why she got this, a curse on the land, same old, of or past violence on the land, which is where you're coming from, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Doris,
I mean, the Civil War was quite one, and if you've got spirits that are of that era, then they're still going to be playing it out almost. And I mean, the black population wasn't treated that well. So I'm just thinking maybe it could be attributed to that in a roundabout way.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. So we'd have to research this a hell of a lot more than we've done for this overview for tonight. But Doris apparently passed away in 1999. And towards the end of her life, she actually went out of her way to avoid discussing the case. So we'll have to do a show on this one. Right? Yeah. Now, some say that throughout her teenage life, she spent time, or part of her pastime was taking part in seances and toying with dark magic.
Okay.
But there's no way to know for sure because she's never documented what. But whatever, if this is actual if this is actually, I say, fascinating case, it would be worth looking deeper into that to see. But again, it's an entity that's coming in and actually having. That's where it takes it that step beyond the psychology, isn't it? Or was she that disturbed mentally that this was transformed? I don't know. It's one of those weird ones, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll have to look into that. I think maybe do another show on it and look at it in depth.
Yeah, as I say, that was just a quick overview article that I found on the case. But yeah, as I say, I remember that from the film. I remember watching the film when I was younger, and yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, cool. Well, with that, we have actually come to the end of the show. So do you want to quickly run through what we got coming up this week?
Yeah, this week we have got Haunted Histories tomorrow. Penny is talking to Fright Nights London, Kerry and Steve, regarding Avenue House, which is in Finchley. And I did my first ever investigation there.
Awesome.
So I'm really interested in that one for tomorrow night. On the Spectral Zone on Thursday evening, Kaz has got Yorkshire Ghost Hunts in the studio. Now, Yorkshire Ghost Hunts are very involved in helping. If you remember rightly, Kaz did a show with Jo Trehan regarding her son Sean, who has a condition called lipodystrophy. Now, I know Yorkshire Ghost Hunts are very involved in an event, which is a charity event that's raising money towards helping towards that cause, raising money for that cause. So she's got the Yorkshire Ghost Hunts in the studio with her on Thursday evening to discuss all about that. And then on the Spirit Dimension on Sunday evening, I have got Ashley Mortimer, Steve Ward, and obviously the lovely Claire in the studio with me. We're talking about black and white magic, and if there is such a thing, or is all magic neutral, it's just how you direct it. That's going to be a fascinating discussion, I think.
Excellent. Yep, it does sound it. I might actually listen in on that one. Join you in the chat room. You're welcome. Got to make an effort.
Yeah, you do.
And next week on the Paranormal Concept Show, we're going to be discussing experiments. Some of the experiments that we've used before, some experiments we might not have even heard of before. So definitely join us in the chat room for that one and put forward your experiments. So let us know. Be interesting to find out.
It most certainly will. And I'm hearing some new ones quite a lot at the moment.
Yeah, to be honest, I've not heard of any new ones, so it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I've heard of some new ones that are going out and about at the moment in the field. So that's a fascinating one. I like things like that.
Cool. Well, that's what we'll be doing next week. So thank you, everyone, for joining us in the chat room. Thank you for listening. And we shall speak to you and see you again next week. So good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.